We are recording. Looks good. All right. Back for another episode of the Esoteric Archives here in the old basement. And I'm Andrew.
I'm Mike.
And we have a super special guest with us today. It's Heidi Luv from Unfiltered Rise. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's heard and seen her around because you seem to be everywhere these days.
It's kind of like that, huh? You get on and you think, oh, this is stupid. I'm never going to get anywhere with this. And whoa, it just went all over the place. So yeah, I never thought I'd be a podcaster at all, ever. But 2.5 years later, here I am. And probably more than ever lately. It's been wild. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for jumping on a new show. And so I think trying to think when I first heard you, I'm pretty sure it was on Tinfoil Hat, like a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just I don't know why it triggered something with me. Like I said, I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, and there's just like the Mormon population there is pretty huge. So I felt like every other friend I had was Mormon. I went to like the trick or trunk thing. I've done all that. I wasn't
You're Mormonized.
Yeah, I was an honorary Mormon. Yeah. I started diving into some more of your episodes and learning about the history of LDS and the Freemason ties and all. That's just it started to kind of blow my mind. So when we were looking at kind of building out some episode outlines, I was like, we should get Heidi on to talk about this because there's got to be something there. So
there's so much. I always joke and say this is the gift that keeps on giving, and it just never. You never have the right story, even when you have the right story, and then it leads to 30 other rabbit holes. So if people like rabbit holes, check out the Mormons.
Yeah, no kidding, right? No kidding.
Yeah, for sure. Because you wouldn't think Canada, right? You're like, oh. What? They're in Mexico? Oh, what? They're in Canada? Oh, they're in Australia and El Salvador and all the Latin countries. Wow, that's kind of scary, huh? They're everywhere.
Yeah, they really made their way around, and it's kind of and it's even, we started diving into more Canadian topics, and like basically the gist of it is that Canada's kind of this like proxy country to the United States, so everything that happens there happens here, but more secretively. And that was, and that was definitely kind of the way, at least from my research, the way the Mormons sort of made their way up here. There's obviously, we can get into the East Coast ties with the Stewarts and that old
That's
Acadian.
What I am. I'm a Stewart.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah. Henry Stewart Talbot is my great-great-great-grandpa. Yes.
Wow. Okay. And how did you?
Yeah, it gets weird.
How did you find that out?
So my grandma was a missionary for the Mormon Church, but for genealogy, and she delved like deep in it. And when she does that, like she's passed now, she would get birth certificates and travel there and get all these files and microfiche and all this crazy stuff. And I remember doing it with her. Like she would sit me in front of a computer and just say, look for this word. And I would be looking through the microfilm, psh, psh, psh. And I never understood really what the heck we were doing because I was like 15, I just wanted to meet boys and like, this is a drag. Yeah. So, I just thought she was kind of nuts. Like, honestly, I was like, this is a little crazy. You're taking pictures of tombstones and all kinds of weird stuff. But she compiled all this together and started building not only our tree, but then ended up working, like I said, with the church to help build their genealogical stuff out in the mountain. You've seen the mountain, haven't you?
I did. Yeah, I looked it up. It's pretty wild. So that's like
mountain with the razor wire. That's just for genealogy. Don't worry.
Yeah, just a big archive.
Armed guards, armed guards with big, guns, like automatic guns. Like, yeah, that's totally normal, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, I don't recall that at the provincial archive. But
yeah. And nobody gets to go there, and nobody's seen inside. Except I do have a couple pictures from some article they once released because people were like what are you building in there? Like, it's weird, and if you know about like the tunnels and everything, I dare say it's probably the entrance to the tunnels, because they go clear down to Delta. They're big enough for a semi truck. I have another lady that's been through them in the semi truck, like hauling things back and forth underground. Like, this is a weird situation. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. So do you think it's something, it's because I've seen sort of the underground tunnels that have, there's like subways down there and a Starbucks. Do you think it's kind of the same thing where there's people sort of stationed there? And
well, the Mormon Church actively admits that they use them. They go underneath the city completely, and they have like little golf carts, and it depends on which area you're in, how wide they are, like semi-truck versus golf carts, but they are heavily guarded by the Mormon security. And yes, they carry guns, and yes, they'll probably shoot you if you try to go down in there. So probably best to not. Ted Bundy was known to use them while he was here on his active spree. He was a Mormon. So I guess, he found out, I don't know how, but they blocked that off and kind of closed it. Every time somebody gets smart and starts figuring out, oh, look, we can go underground here. Let's go underground here. Oh, we got to move that entrance underneath East High School where all those kids are going to be causing havoc in the middle of the night. And because there was a risk, it's on a fault line. They moved it like 100 feet. Oh, yeah. Much safer there. Yeah, 100 feet. Okay.
Yeah, green zone now. You're good.
Yeah. So stupid. Yeah, and then the tunnels are sealed again. So, yeah, whatever.
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
That's a real story.
Yeah, it's really crazy to me how they so I guess the weirdest connection that I've heard you make is sort of these like the CIA connections and all the paramilitary stuff, and that to me is just so.
And NASA.
Yeah, and NASA.
NASA.
So when I was
the biggest.
yeah. But just like the business ties as well. So I listened to that episode where you're talking about Howard Hughes and his connection to the Vegas mob and all that. Like basically Vegas wouldn't exist the way it does without him.
No, it wouldn't. The Mormons settled Las Vegas, actually. So
yeah, so there's some weird ties actually with Howard Hughes and Canada, because he used to basically, Vancouver Island was one of his kind of getaways. While he was like in his recluse phase, the only times he got away was to come up to Vancouver Island. Apparently, he had a bunch of business dealings in southern Alberta, obviously with the oil boom and all that. And then was also involved in was like flight tracking in the Yukon, like for Arctic flight exploration.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
And looking for portals.
And yeah.
Looking for portals.
Yeah. Natural man-made, not man-made portals, natural portals is what he was kind of known to be up to. We also have Area 52 out here in Utah. I don't know if you know that, but there's like a whole nother UFO area here, which is really weird. And the people that worked with all these people that we're talking about, right? Like, for example, his right-hand man, Mayhew, he worked on the Maury Island affair. So with the FBI. Wow. Yeah. And so he was, good friends with Shaw and all these other people. In fact, he worked with Bannister for 10 years out in Chicago. So we know that Howard Hughes knew, I would say, anything he wanted to know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's kind of what it seems like. Yeah. So the connection with Howard Hughes, though, so he wasn't actually a Mormon. He was just heavily involved with Mormon. I know he liked to hire them to run his companies and things like that. Is that right?
Yeah. How did that come about?
So the Mormon Mafia, actually, they kind of did a ploy between the two of them. And, there's Mayhew, who was involved with, the FBI and the CIA. He's actually huge. His life was the life that they made the movie Mission Impossible after. And he had delivered like Saudi Arabia people and different people to the CIA. And I mean, he was in there, big. And Khashoggi's, and it gets crazy on that side of things. And that's where we go into kind of Howard Hughes's nemesis, we'll say Onassis. So long story short, they say he hired him to look after his wife, like he thought she was cheating. And so go find out. And then the next thing we know, he's doing all these other things for him that don't make any sense if that was all it was. And then his driver / errand boy, which was a Mormon, which is William Gay, Bill Gay the second. And so I believe he's the second. Yeah. And he was his errand boy, and he actually got to see Howard Hughes and interact with Howard Hughes, which Mayhew never met him ever face to face. And so a lot of these people didn't. And he just was very selective. And that guy, Gay, he worked his way all the way up to running the companies, booting out Mayhew, taking over everything, and replacing all of the people involved with either Mormons or Mormon affiliates, including the doctor that, said Howard Hughes was dead. He's a Mormon. Like, he actually got in trouble for that. He had a DEA case come out against that. And I have some photos and stuff we can yank up on the Mormon Mafia if you want. But it's very interesting on the ties there, let alone the ties for like everywhere else and the UFO connection. And the fact that we know, the Mormon Church does these little hints, like, I don't know if you guys know, like Project Blue, this is like a big project, right, for aliens, if you're into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say interdimensionals because I totally believe in that.
Yeah, that's
me as well.
Yeah. It's just we're running into, fallen angels, I think, probably at some point, and not just by accident. I mean, they know how to get them here. So, they have the Marriott Blue in Hawaii. They do these little dumb nods where you're like, okay. And if you know, and if you don't, you don't. And then you just go, oh, okay. Right. And they know a lot of things. I think they still channel. I think they are used periodically. That's woo-woo, but that's just my take on things. Yeah, I do. I think that's what they do. But
yeah, the whole revelation of the method thing is a little on the nose these days.
Yeah,
less and less creative as it goes on. Yeah.
Well, and it starts back, with Joseph dying. I mean, Joseph was the woo-woo. Joseph was into witchcraft, and I can prove that. And
sure.
I have a less issue with Joseph than I do with Brigham. Because people always ask me, like, if you had to choose and you didn't have any other choice, like which one? And I'm like, oh, completely Joseph, because he really believed it. But also he's communing, with angels. We're John D'ing it up over there. So, he knew all the esoteric things, and it's very evident that he did. He was in the greater and lesser keys of Solomon. He's into occultic traditions. He is doing more than just protecting himself, which is what the church will say. It's folk magic and he's just protecting himself. I'm like, no, he's invoking, because there's certain things where you can read the parchments and see that, but they hope that no one will, right? Like they're weird. And so they're like, hopefully they won't look at that thing. And then, it's back to that whole, you're kind of crazy because you read into it and nobody else thinks that. So, Joseph was getting pretty ballsy. I mean, people don't know this, but he ran for president. He was, this was happening right as he dies, and he went to the president of the United States of America and demanded like upwards of billions of dollars, at the time, for reparations because they had been ran out of town. And, largely they're squatting and it's not really their land anyway, but he's demanding this. So he's getting kind of a thorn in their side. I mean, it becomes a problem. And I think Brigham was wise enough to see this coming, where he was, putting all of his little Freemason ways into, step and making sure he would be able to advance, because he was not next in line for the crown, so to speak. Actually, it was definitely Oliver Cowdery. And he just had a bad day. He'd been sick. He hadn't really been around. He had been sick for months. And so he didn't do the best presentation when it came down to the speech that should have never even been in question. I mean, Brigham Young wasn't in line. And it should have been his son, who was actually, ordained, but he was 10. So, Cowdery's like, look, I'll take care of it, But the mother was kind of threatened. Brigham Young told her, look, Mother Smith, do you really want to put him in line? Look at what's happened to everybody else. His brothers were killed as well. I mean, this gets gross and serious. So she kind of shut up. She was even pregnant at the time, which no one talks about. And that son actually ended up being crazy. And I think it was probably the stress of her pregnancy. I don't know. But he was hospitalized for, I think it was 27 years of his life, like largely most of his life. And nobody talks about him, you know.
Huh. It's like a generational trauma kind of thing.
Yeah. His name was David. And it's really sad. They say that, you know, he was the lamb that everything was maybe put on, you know, up to slaughter there, kind of left out to dry, even by that family. And it's sad, you know, there's rumors he was gay. I don't know about that, but there's just all kinds of things. But he definitely was institutionalized. That's provable. And so when Brigham steps in, he immediately, you know, starts saying, okay, what do you always hear about the Mormons? Oh, we're persecuted. We have to run away to Canada, or we have to run away to Mexico, and we have to run all these places, and then absolutely contact the government and say, hey, can I help you finish that railroad? Who does that?
Yeah. Well, that's sort of when I was looking into it, that's how, so I found like Charles Oracard, and that's how he made his way to southern Alberta. Is they were being persecuted for polygamy. And so, you know, Canada being Canada was like, yeah, bring your weirdness up here, I guess.
Right? And they made a deal with them.
Yeah.
They made a deal with them, to your point, that if they built an irrigation system, that was the agreement on them moving there. So yeah, come on up, just
leave
do the work.
Alone.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And I believe it was leave the polygamy behind closed doors.
Yeah, it was
the agreement. We won't
don't
prosecute
ask,
you.
don't tell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is the Canadian way. Yeah.
Well, and you know, we see it with Mexico too, with the Romneys. You know, that's what happened, and how they became such an influential family is they went and settled real Mexico, not you know, Utah, Mexico, as it was then. But I think Brigham knew what was coming. I mean, he acted all put out over it and whatnot, but I don't think that was real. I mean, he was working with Kuhn and Loeb. He's got all these missionaries off to England. He's making the connections in the right places. We'll say that through the Harriman brothers. We're finishing out these things. And if you look it up, they'll say, oh, no, the LDS church didn't do that. But, you know, through Harriman, they did. And, you know, Brigham Young was on the board for the railroad. So, and that was all built off the sweat of the Mormons for slave labor, and they were never paid for it. Upwards of $30 million, they say. And then also killing people and taking their money. So, you know, no.
Yeah, no, it's just so wild. And then the things that end up kind of embedding themselves in like, say, the way Canada's set up. So I looked it up, and there's like that Charles Card guy had the initial town that he settled was based on that plat of Zion that Joseph basically had, like the perfect grid set up for how to establish a town. And so it's like,
Enoch. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, and then the first two things that they establish are the school and the temple. It's like, you got to get your indoctrination buildings built first, obviously. And then the rest was gridded out as farmland and essentially sectioned off. And if you look at most big Canadian cities are on that sort of that plot. They're all gridded out
the same way.
Yeah, right. Like it's, if you think about how the streets are set up, streets and avenues, it's all that same grid. So
the mountain behind Cardston too is quite interesting. It's like a tabletop, a really neat looking tabletop mountain, I think called Chief Mountain, that you see in a lot of the pictures too.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, and I would be curious, because I'm not familiar with this, who ran their school, because I know for Brigham Young University, they brought in a German, which gets really interesting. Like, oh, where did that come from? But you guys even have a story that I haven't put out too far yet up in Canada. I'm just looking for where he went. But there is a secret story about the prophet Joseph's brother. And he was they would call him a dunker or a seeker. And he took off, and he's up in your area, and he took off to Canada, and they make very little reference. He's almost impossible to find. And he goes up and settles areas up in Canada, and his name was Jason Mack. And so he helped like find these towns, and he's weirdly under this strange religion as well. They called him a reverend, like a lay reverend, and or a preacher. And I found it very interesting that they try to hide him at every single turn. Like it's almost impossible to find him, and that he's up in Canada doing all of this. They actually even hide his posterity and obfuscate everything in the Mormons' genealogy. And I mean, it is just almost impossible to find any information on Jason Mack. So
That's the first I've heard of
went
it.
up there.
Yeah. Because I heard, like, I did read that Brigham Young had a brother up in Ontario.
In Kingston.
I bet he did.
In Kingston, which I was listening to an episode of yours last night, kind of getting ready for this, and you were mentioning like still well-known polygamous families, and Kingston was one of the families that you mentioned, and I was like, holy shit, I wonder if there's any connection, because I'm not sure when the town was actually named. I didn't get that far into looking, but yeah, I just thought it was strange that Brigham Young's brother was up, and the area he settled was Kingston. So
Jason went, he was actually a political figure in Nova Scotia, and he became a pretty big deal there, just so you guys know where I'm talking about. He was a United Empire loyalist, and he went to King's College in Windsor. This is the son of theirs. But he becomes pretty integral, and when we're talking about the Kingstons as well, you know, this sect of polygamy still continues to this day. And the Kingstons are one of the very few people that will flat tell you they are the blood of Jesus Christ, and they intermarry with each other to keep their bloodlines pure. And they actually are very rich, and they donated a ton of money to Romney for his last little go for president, just for fun, I guess. And of course they say, oh, those weirdos, that has nothing to do with us. But then you see all these little ties like money, you know, and you know that they actually hire a geneticist to tell them who to marry now. So they're like, no, not that sister, marry your second sister from your other mother or whatever. And they keep their bloodline pure because they truly believe in the whole story with Mary Magdalene, the Templar thing, and the Holy Grail, and that Joseph Smith was the actual bloodline of Jesus Christ himself. So yeah, it gets weird. The Kingstons are like fascinating. And this book that the mother put out, you know, the mother of Joseph Smith put this book out. And when Brigham Young heard about it, he flipped out, and he had an order for all of them to be burned. And somebody made a ploy. I can't remember if it was Pratt, but they were in England and they put out the book anyway. And he didn't get the notice, I suppose, to burn it until later. And it was too late, and it was out and about. So it is still out there. And it's the history, you know, of Joseph Smith from his mother. And what's in it is very different in two different versions of this book, because it was recalled and redone, and leaving out who? Jason Mack. Why?
That was the omission.
That is the omission. And she makes this little coy little jab basically at Brigham, like, you better take care of my family. I've lost all my children, which she did. You know, I mean, she suffered. And she basically made it known, you will take care of us, or I will let this go. And she did it very carefully. She makes reference to doctors. Dr. Smith was his name. Her last name is Smith, but she doesn't remember his name, and she calls him like Dr. Stone or something. And she obfuscates that, and it goes to the Dartmouth connection, which leads to a whole bunch of areas. And so that's an excellent video if you guys want to check that one out. The Dartmouth connection is bananas. And it kind of blows into, you know, the Church of Christ, which is originally what the LDS church was. And so people don't know that.
So his mom then, was she, do you think, because you said he was more kind of the woo-woo, do you think she was sort of like the brains of the operation, kind of the...
I think there's two factions there. I don't know if you've ever seen Joseph F. Smith, which would have been Joseph's nephew, but and I'm not saying this to be, I just don't know how else to put it. He looks very Ashkenazi. Okay. Does that appear in his genealogy? No, but I will say her name was Mack, Lucy Mack. She comes from Solomon Mack, who comes from Ebenezer Mack. These names are very, aligned with maybe that heritage, which is not a big deal, but it is if you're hiding something. And his knowledge of Kabbalah and her knowledge and state, like even when she got married, the next one down, his wife too, as well, they were like high standing. Joseph's family was from Salem, Massachusetts. They were involved in the Inquisition of that whole situation, with his great-great-grandpa being one of the accusers of Mary Easty. It's all on the Salem connection that I just barely did, and there's proof on there straight from Salem itself. So they both had it. I do feel like the mom was more into the Kabbalistic side of things, whereas the dad was, witchcraft. And Joseph Smith Sr. has a quote out there in 1830 from a neighbor that was visiting that said he absolutely believed in witchcraft, and I bet he did.
Mhm.
I think he used it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the people that were the accusers then were often the guilty party. So,
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to have changed so much to now.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I
Right.
think it's with any of the Abrahamic religions and their offshoots, right? There's always, I mean, you start to look into Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry and all this stuff, and it's they're always like men of God. So my great grandfather was a Shriner, and there's like the saying that not all Masons are Shriners, but all Shriners are Masons,
yes.
which is just the
Exactly.
truth. And he had a very, like, it was I always thought, like, I was always told that he was a Christian man and whatever, but he always had these weird stories about his faith that always felt very occult and always felt very, like, more in the
Hidden hand, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
hidden hand. Yes. It's,
This
you
wasn't
know,
just, some vet that went to church once a week. Like, this was his full-on belief system, and yeah, he wore
his
the rosy
life.
cross and stuff like that too. So it was,
well, there's a definite tie with that religion. I haven't released it yet, but with Jason Mack, there is a tie with Rosicrucians that's going to be coming out. That's very interesting. I mean, people don't understand how far and wide this went and how many ways it went, right? Like, it's never just one thing. Like, it's not just the Mormons. Like, when we look at the guy that went out and James Strang, and he continued as a prophet as well out to Beaver Island, his stuff was really woo-woo and weird. Some of them kept the woo-woo. It was just, I feel like Brigham he'd had enough of being lost of all of the money he had or made. He was sick of it. And I think he was like, you know what? We're just going to play ball with these people and then put it all underground, which is absolutely what I think they did. I think these things, when you see like weird stuff pop up, like the LDS Church of Satan, which is not the mainstream church, which is not part of the normie, Mormons. Yeah, Mormons will be like, she's a crazy lady. Okay, look into it. Like, this is your, attorney general that was accused. Yeah, he wasn't found guilty, but he also took off and bought a castle in Scotland and pieced out, like,
yeah.
and he also said he wasn't a cannibal on live TV. So, nobody asked. Like, no one asked you that. So that was weird.
It's a
and
very weird
granted-
thing to just
yeah.
volunteer.
Yeah. Like, what?
And also, I don't
nobody
eat
said
humans.
that. Yeah. And people were just like, everything froze at that press conference because it was almost like he heard that and answered a question nobody asked, and everybody just shut up. And they were like, what? Like, yeah. Okay. And it was just so weird. And then he goes and buys a castle in Scotland, which is, where
Something Dracula would do.
Yeah. It's just weird. And you hear all these very strange stories, but you hear like, oh, Joseph Smith was just poor, but he's actually related to, all these kings and queens they've done the genealogy on. Like, I am as well with the Stuarts. Like, what the hell was going on? You know what I mean? Like, and people say, well, everybody's related back then. No, not these critical people. No.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. One, I've heard you. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, who was he? What line was he related to?
The Henry Stuart
not
Talbot is supposedly through the illegitimate king's son. And if I do my when I go into the genealogy right now, my 8th great grandpa is the king, like right now, not like 10 times once removed, all that crap. No, it's just straight up the line. And it's weird because I'm like, okay, well, it matches with my DNA. Like it matches. So obviously it was either them or somebody real close to them, because unfortunately for them, DNA is a thing and it matches now, does that matter to me? No, they were poor. Like, I'm not rich. I don't care about any of that. I'm just talking about these hidden hands that they hid all over the place, and they did it, with stealth. I mean, this is kind of frightening when you look at what the NWO said when they start bringing these things together with the Round Table Foundation. That was their goal, is to hide people in plain sight. Like, and everybody gets mad at me and says I'm crazy. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But like, you should probably look at that, And why did Kingston's have that name? King's son, King's 10, like King's son. Yeah. Oh. I mean, I don't think they're hiding anything. The polygamous orders are way more honest, to be quite frank. They hold to the old. They don't change their policy. They still don't interact with Black people or outsiders. They're very much like the rest of the world is Goyim, and we can hurt them if we want to and bleed the beast of the government because we hate you. And like, it's scary, actually, some of the old oaths they take,
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I was going to say, because like I guess the brand of LDS that I know is very much just the kind of like, I mean, all the kids I knew, they were just a bunch of dorks, really. Like, they were just a bunch of nerds, and their families were just kind of like straight and narrow.
The nicest people ever.
Yeah.
And why do they do that? Yeah. Why do they do that in Masonic orders, right? Why do we have the porch Masons that never advance? And why don't they kick them out? Because they're not studying or they're not advancing. They don't want the true knowledge. So why are they really there? They're there for the dinners and to make it look normal, so that when somebody says to them, hey, you're a Mason? Isn't that cool, or woo-woo or whatever? And they're like, no, we just do dinners and raise money and stuff. What? Yeah. Because that helps them. They hide in plain sight that way. Same thing with the Mormons and their traditions with their temple. They just changed it again. They've created such a small, tiny piece. It's like an hour long now. And these are supposed to be the oaths and ordinances that get you to heaven. And people are like, oh, I love it. It's so streamlined. I'm like, you're an idiot. They aren't sharing the whole thing with you. And you're probably missing the keys. I mean, I'm Christian, so I don't care. But like, if this is what you believe is getting you to heaven, wouldn't you be concerned if you only got the Cliff Notes? I don't know.
You get a black belt after a few lessons. That's a little weird.
And they're just like, it's totally fine. Don't memorize anything. Like, they're just using them so they can go do their weird stuff on Thursday night or whatever night they meet, but it helps cover them. There's no more like, ooh, the Quorum of the 12 only meets together on the 3rd Sunday of every month, like whatever it is. I don't know, but I'm just making up stuff there. But I'm sure that they do. And I'm sure that the biggest, most important people, get the best of that religion. Do I want it? No, I think it's all really scary. But, and not just because it's Masonic or, whatever. I think they're channeling angels, and I don't think they're good ones, so I'm good.
No, I think whenever you get into invoking spirits, it's wise to proceed with caution. There's that saying, like, you can call in spirits, but like, you don't call in the devil, because the devil followed you home, right? So
how do you know who you're calling in and who's lying and who's not? I'm out. When spirits are involved, I'll watch on that one.
Yeah, John D thought they were like the most benevolent spirits ever, and that's why I always put this book first. And people are like, she's an occultist, and I'm like, listen, you're never going to get the answers in your Christian book. You're just not. And so if you want to listen to somebody else, that's fine, or do a skimming or whatever, but you have to have a basic knowledge of things, because otherwise it is so simple for you to be so uneducated. Like, and even John D later said, I was lied to. Like, they lied to me, and I spent my whole life dedicated to this, and I thought I was talking to angels from God. He was pious and he loved God. And then time to swap wives. Like, he should have tapped out and just been like, bro, no way.
Yeah, it always seems to lead to that. Hey,
Always with the swapping of wives.
I know the wives or the Crowleyan butt stuff. Like it's always something gross, right? Like it's got to be this debauchery. And then I always go back to like, okay, so is this a Zabbatean movement really? Is that what this is? Like, is that why you guys all want to have sex with your progeny and your children? Like, you have to start looking at all of that. And most people don't even know who that is, and how smart for them, because they're never going to know what's on. Like, you are going to be so easy to just like push it all past,
Yeah.
That's weird.
I mean, it's always a look over here, not over here kind of thing. I thought that was strange. I'm sure you've had this question before, but with that, I watched that Mormon Housewives show with my wife because we like to watch shitty reality TV, and then,
yeah, of course,
But yeah, I thought it was
Real
strange.
Salt Lake, the house.
Real
Yeah. No, it wasn't a Real Housewives one. It was like actually like Mormon Wives, I think it was called.
Oh, okay. The housewife one is better. Yeah, because
is it? Okay.
Well, no, because that is Bill Gay the third's wife, Heather Gay, that worked for Howard Hughes, and it never goes away. And the names for the wives, the real lives of Mormon wives, if you look at their last name, one's a Levitt. Who did I say moved to Scotland and bought a castle? They don't end up in these positions for no reason. Yeah. And this show does not depict clearly anything that the Mormon wives would really be. Like, they're not living by the standards. Like, and somebody asked the one girl, Chantel, or somebody that just had a baby and she was pregnant before she got married or something. And they're like, how are you wearing such like revealing clothes? Well, she'd never been through the temple. So they're completely making this show about people that don't even know anything really about anything. They've never even been through the temple.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question about it. Is I found it I found it entertaining for whatever entertainment's sake, but I thought it was strange that it was allowed to happen, because I mean, like, something like you're not going to see like a Real Housewives of Scientology anytime soon.
No.
They're not going to let that happen. But why?
It's distraction. Yeah.
Why?
It's distraction.
Yeah, that's all it is.
They've all got lavender marriages, and their husbands, are weird. Like, and whatever people want to do. Look, I'm not going to say anything. Whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. But that wouldn't be my decision. And that's just not Christian, in my opinion. But like, I don't care. But like, also, you would think the church would shut it down,
Yeah.
I mean, gives them a pretty bad look. And then it just offers, it's just back to the railroad and Kuhn and Loeb. Because what did Jacob Schiff say? We're going to fund both sides of the war because it will help us, right? And then they'll all hate each other. And so the good Mormons are like, look at these morons over here. And then the bad Mormons are like, oh, they're cool Mormons. And so like, it just keeps that going. And I think that's all it is. And then it gives people to talk about, and the Mormons stay somehow relevant and don't end up in the news about sex abuse or money laundering, you know, because they just hide it, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a good PR team. That's for damn sure.
I mean, Enzyme Peak scandal, I don't know if you know about that, but if you don't, that is the biggest rabbit hole ever, and it was just let go. I mean, they were totally had all these offshore accounts hiding money. It was proven, and they did not get fined or anything, billions of dollars, and it's not supposed to be, making money like that. It's a church organization, 501c3. What are you doing? You should have been fined. This was a big deal. There was a whistleblower, and they shoved it all underneath the rug. They got away with it. Of course they did, because they're one of the few people that freaking helped get the Federal Reserve started anyway. So Heber J. Grant's godfather was the one that brought that in. And so to Utah, literally, Godby was his name. And Godbyite Mormons, that's a different little sect. Like, there's so many, but that guy in particular, he was integral in bringing the whole Federal Reserve to Utah. And they did. They sold out. And most of the land in Utah, if you go look it up, is owned by the state.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So.
Yeah, they always have their money men. Hey, there's like, I heard you say too, like Elon Musk's money man is a is a Mormon, and
He's
that's
a
kind of
Mormon.
things are going to be shifting
And
from the Federal Reserve into this new, sort of financial playbook, which all the digital currencies and all that. So they have their
oh,
hands in that too.
well,
It's
since I've spoken to anyone, you guys are just lucky. I've been down the craziest rabbit hole on X. But Peter Till's family was all Mormon, including the guy
really
that came here that was German that I told you came to BYU to help their education program. That is Peter Till's great grandfather. People will want to look that up. I will be doing a show on it. It is a crazy rabbit hole.
wow.
And he went to this like university out in South Africa where again we're rubbing shoulders with some Musks. I think it was Kimball Musk. And so it's very interesting. Like when you're looking at that, and this guy was revered. There's like a whole wing named after this guy. It's like, I want to tell you the name. I'm going to find it. And it's just strange to me that they never mention anything about this, this German guy that comes out of no, like, where the hell did he come from? Like, that's my question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was
It's
he
weird.
also super young and rose to a high position in his early 20s? Because that also seems to be a common occurrence with these guys, is like they're CFO of a company at 23 and like
Right.
Crazy. I got
This
nowhere.
particular guy, it wasn't, but he was, I mean, this is back in the day. This is like 1900s or late 1800s. And it cracks me up because I'm like, wait a minute. If this guy's coming out here back then and Peter Till and all these other people have all this family from there on down, like that's kind of frightening, like knowing that they've been in these integral positions. I don't know. It seems really nerve-wracking to me. And of course, they're all Freemasons,
Yeah.
As well
They've
as
got
being
pictures. Yeah, with the hidden hand. I actually feel like they're Rite of Mizraim and very influenced by the Templars, in my opinion. So, yeah, I can't prove that one. That's good. But up through your way.
No, for sure. That's the whole Akkadian side of things is all Templar roots and all that. So, not surprising.
It's quite
100%.
amazing how involved the Mormons are in almost everything. For such a small number of people.
Yeah. Well, when I looked it up, it said there were 200,000 Mormons in Canada, and I don't believe that. It's got to be maybe in Edmonton alone. It seemed like but so I found that kind of strange. It's almost like, well, they're even hiding their own numbers here.
Yes. Yep.
Like,
and I mean, it just makes this guy's name that I'm referencing, just so people can know. Peter Till's direct lineage is not predominantly Mormon, but his family connection to Carl G. Maser, Maeser, creates the link between Till's ancestry and the LDS's leadership. There's a whole wing named after him. He was one of the first, if not the very first principals of BYU, just so people can look this up. So, because I will get told I'm full of it. And I'm not. Like, it's, I'm going to do a show, but when we started this thread, I started this little thread and it turned into the craziest rabbit hole. And I went, how do I even present this? Right? Like, I mean, it goes back to IBM, it goes back to Bill Gates, and Bill Gates being related to Joseph Smith's maternal grandmother. And it is a rabbit hole. I mean, it's bananas. And no wonder, they work so closely with Bill Gates. I mean, that makes total sense then. That's their first standing is Microsoft is their first portfolio holding. Mm-hmm. So, let alone Alphabet and everything. They're just in all of it. Amazon, they're in all of it, like you said.
I remember hearing back when I was a kid that it was like one of the first things I thought was kind of strange about the Mormons is that they had a massive holding in Coca-Cola. They, can't have caffeine. I was like, what?
Okay. So here's I'm going to break this one. So I've heard back and forth. They don't anymore at Coca-Cola. I think it was through United Fruit, which is even more crooked than Coke. And so that's a more fun, down that rabbit hole if you go through that in South America, but, which leads straight to our president today. United Fruit. It's Yeah, it's top woe, and when
Yeah.
we look at this stuff, they can have caffeine. They are addicted to caffeine. Make no mistake of that. They just can't, and they love soda. They just can't have coffee or tea. And so it used to say hot drinks, but also we don't mind anything else in these rules that they gave us, that it's supposed to be like eat meat sparingly and don't overindulge and blah, blah. It's all this stuff for health, okay, in the word
Okay.
of wisdom. But nobody does any of those rules. And for some reason, just coffee and tea was what stuck. And so they say, oh, it's the tannic acid. But then the Mormons started making their own coffee, which is why this makes sense, right? And then they can make more money because you're buying their coffee, which is called Pero. And it's like this barley coffee. And so, all the old Mormons drank that instead. So,
Okay.
and you can have
Okay.
tea, but you can't have they say it's for, I finally asked the bishop once because I was like, this has got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because you make hot cocoa,
Yeah.
I've helped like make this over when we do this stuff, they package their own food and you go give your time and effort to help them. And I'm like, you make hot chocolate. There's a ton of caffeine in that, let alone sugar,
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, it's not that. It's the tannic acid that they put in it. And I'm like, right. But they all drink tons of Coke and Diet Coke. And I mean, the soda bars here are on every corner. They're called
Yeah,
Fizz. Yeah.
that was the
or
weirdest thing I
something.
saw in that Mormon Wives show. They're
Oh,
all
yeah. The
gathering
Mormon
at these
wives.
yeah, they're all gathering at these soda shops. I was like, what?
Yep. They're addicted. They're so
Yeah.
addicted, and they're addicted to sugar, and people don't understand. But I think it was pushed because one of the main exports for Utah became beet sugar. They're actually the ones that started pushing horrible beet sugar. It's terrible for you.
Yeah.
And, they pushed that and they made this beet sugar company, and it used to be a big deal out here. And the prophet at that time said, we will make this sugar company if it busts the church, like, and breaks it to pieces, because he was that like set on making sure that happened. And what are you going to do with that export if you don't have a railroad? Well, they used all those Mormons and told them they would pay them later. And then Brigham Young wrote off the debt.
Wow.
Yeah. To Harriman. And so, that when you have favors like that, you can call in favors like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Now, did him doing that cause a revolt? Like, has there ever been like a mass revolt in the LDS church where a bunch of people are, enough of this and try and break away? Or is it kind
I
of
think
controlled before it gets to
Mormons
that
are
point?
so well behaved for the most part now. I think that they've always trained them, like, okay, for example, when Joseph Smith said he had his magic rock and he could see things, and then some other guy did, and they were like, no, you don't. You put that rock away. Like, only the prophet can do that, So, like, they start squashing this stuff early, and we're pretty much raised to be very obedient to the church. That's why the FBI and CIA and all these places love Mormons, because half of the brainwashing is done for you. Because since we're born, like, everything is about, following the prophet and doing this and that and supporting Israel. And, that's in our rules and regulations, like, even like, people don't understand that's in our articles of faith,
Right.
that they literally believe in Israel being restored and a gathering of the tribes and all this stuff. So, since I was born, they're like, we have to support this. So no, I don't think that they have much trouble squashing it. I do think there was a lot of complaining, back and forth. Like, Brigham Young allowed alcoholic drinks, and so did Joseph Smith, as long as you made them yourself. And they had their own breweries, and they had all kinds of stuff. Like, Joseph Smith's family ran a beer shop, and then Brigham Young had all kinds of, distilleries and whatnot. But they got rid of all that under some other presidents that were more serious about things, right? And so people would talk. Like, my mom was here the other day, and it was great because she grew up with all these old timers, and on Sunday they would all meet at my great grandma's, and they would kind of complain about what they liked or didn't like about the prophet. And she said they all hated Brigham so much, and they would complain and complain, but they still paid their tithing. They still did everything they were supposed to, because they were kind of beaten down,
Right.
I mean, they've had all this prosecution / persecution, and they really don't know what true freedom is because somebody's always telling them what to do, you know?
Yeah.
And
it's kind of this weird split because it's like, you know, from a top down view, LDS has this sort of like rebellious nature against the state, right? Like they kind of want to be their own thing and control their own world, but then the people within that world are all under that control. So it really is just like it's pretty hypocritical when you think about it.
those rules are for thee and not for me, you know. This is like he's ordained, literally he talks to God every day, you understand, like he is special and you are not special. And so I think that, you know, these people that were really led to believe like it would get better, it will get better, and they're very humble people for the most part, like the real Mormons, the actual Mormon people. This is why I speak out. It's so sad because I was like that too. Like they're just trying to get to heaven and they're just trying to do everything that they can to get to heaven. And meanwhile, you know, the church is just using them and they're goyim to them. Like I don't think they give one care about any of those lines except maybe the royal line pedigrees. Like that's it, because they have a royal line pedigree. And it says from this line, king shall rule. And it's called one royal line, which used to be sold at Deseret Book. And these are the names of the important people, you know, and you can see them in the hierarchies of the church. It's by no mistake that they're there.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's kind of sad, you know, they want, and that's hence polygamy too. You know, the Kingston's fascinating people because, you know, he's one of the ones that learned how to interbreed with people before the geneticist by using his cattle. And so he would, you know, use the genetic studies he had formulated with his cattle on people. And he would, you know, the prophet calls your wife. You don't just go marry whoever you want. Like you go turn yourself in as a woman and they call whoever gets you. And that's that. And whoever's, you know, secretly bid for you since you were 5 or whatever weird shit's going on in that back corner, you know, all that stuff's going on. And this is all preordained and mostly probably been paid for, if you know what I mean. So they don't get to choose a lot of things and they just accept it. But you're right. Like ultimately, these are people that would turn on the government in an instant if given the chance. And they took an oath. People don't know this, but the oath of the black sticks, and I have the black sticks, I have a photo of it, and it is the canes, the coffin canes made from Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith's rotting, decaying bodies in the oak, and they took them out of those and made canes out of those. And then they clipped their hair and put it in the knob and gave them to the important people of the church. And they all took an oath against the government to kill and take over that one day. And the polygamists will tell you, yeah, we hate the government. We will bleed the beast. They call it that by like welfare cheating or whatever they can do, like tax skipping out, whatever they can do to hurt the government, they'll do. And there's, you know, a whole presidential office recreation in the LDS temple in Washington, D.C., because they believe that the church will take over the country one day. And they'll run it. It's the white horse prophecy.
The pale horse. Yeah. Huh.
Crazy. Yeah. No, that's
Joseph Smith's white horse prophecy. Yeah.
Yep.
Does that involve defending Israel as part of it as well?
They will always defend. Israel is part of the article of faith. And so the articles of faith, let me pull that up really quick. It's very interesting about the things that they say about Israel. And even when I was a little girl, I didn't even know what Israel was. And, you know, you're just a child. And even back then, I was told like, oh yeah, we have to defend Israel, you know, at all costs. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. Let me see if I can find that article of faith while we chat.
Does Israel feel the same way? Like, are they, is it, because obviously, you know, there's the whole the Zionist thing where they're the chosen people and this and that, and obviously the Mormons, like they're kind of lumping themselves
they're
in with
white.
it. Like, well, yeah, no, we're with these guys over here.
Let us in too.
I don't think they care. I mean, I don't know. I've seen the Jewish people like that are really into it, and they're like, "Oh, I hope they all die," and you're just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, and they'll tell you that, but I don't know how that works out. But it does say, Article Faith number 10: we believe in the literal gathering of Israel and the restoration. The 10 tribes, that Zion, the New Jerusalem, will be built upon the American continent, and that Christ will reign personally upon the earth, and that the earth will be renewed and receive its parasitical glory. So,
wow.
I mean, they're very Zionist. They believe this land will become heaven on earth. And they also believe in the gathering of the tribes. And you have to understand something like this might sound great or whatever. Like, oh, look, they're supporting good people until you start listening about this cattle guy, right? And his children and all the polygamy. And I often wonder, now this is just me thinking here, because I like to make a separation between fact and thought. What if polygamy, what if they did find the lost tribes and they made sure there were progeny of each one of them here somewhere? It's very serious and concerning when you start looking at this, because in our patriarchal blessings, which you receive when you're like 14, it's like your future telling. Okay, if you mind the church and you're good and you do all the things, then this is how your life will be. And oftentimes it's like, you'll have a good husband and you'll go to the temple and you'll have children, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But it's given by a patriarch, anointed with oil on your head. He's like the oldest guy ever. And he comes in. This is back in the day. Maybe they're young now, but he'll come in and lay hands on your head and tell you your little story, and they record it. But they tell you what tribe you're from at this time. And like my tribe was Ephraim, which is Mary Magdalene, which is true. But I often think they already know that because they have all our genealogy.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you say that they were big in like 23andMe and stuff like that as well, weren't they?
Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
I would think,
So
if anyone would know
Ancestry.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. Keep going.
I was just going to say, I would think if anyone would know the genealogy of the 10 tribes, it would be the Mormons. Yeah.
Well, here's why. So, okay, I was explaining this to somebody the other day, so it's fresh on my mind. So what happened was when you had to have the Aryan pass during World War II to do anything, okay, to prove, and I quote, that you were not from the origins of a Jewess. And that was their quote, for at least 3 generations back, to work or date or live your life or go out of your house, like period, okay? So the Mormons kind of made a deal with the Nazis, They were like, hey, we have to obey the laws of your land because that's part of our articles of faith and different things. And so, we'll do the little salute and we'll be your little Ubermensch and whatever. And they were very helpful, and they didn't get persecuted like the JWs or anybody else, okay? And they got all of the critical genealogy that the priests and stuff would store. Like they were the ones that stored all of this very pertinent information, but the Mormons could never get their hands on it. And they were like, I just want that so much, look at our genealogy would be so much better if we could go clear back to Adam, which they say they do, and Charlemagne. And so, all this stuff that they want. And so, like I said, they worked with them. And they helped them for this Aryan pass so that they could help organize the genealogy. And then what they did is they put it into something called FamilySearch.org. And FamilySearch.org went into all these other, DNA sites now.
Okay.
But it started at Howard Hughes Dynamics, which is so interesting to me, right? And it's under Bill Gay, and he got caught. He got caught by Howard Hughes, and Howard Hughes apparently was super miffed about this, and he shut it down. And it's underneath this book, and so it's a guy that actually, Johnny Meyer, Meier, he worked for Howard Hughes for a very long time, and he wrote a book later, and he talked about this, and he talked about them finding out, and he said, "You shut that down." Because that's just Bill Gay trying to do his stupid Mormon genetics. And so, they shut that particular offshoot down, but of course it continued. And even the first correlation of the LDS Church and Nazism centered around this, and including the leader and saying, oh, in this newspaper article, 1933, written in the church news section of the Deseret News, Mormonism is the new Germany. And Adolf Hitler, in return, said the Mormons are the ultimate Übermensch. And then we know that they got a eugenics program here and started taking care of people that weren't fit to procreate, we'll say. So they sterilized and did forced sterilization, including on multiple people in my family back then, because people were marrying too closely. Don't forget that. Like, it wasn't good. And it was causing all kinds. You'd get a genius, they say, and it was widely true. We would see it with the families. They'd have this one really brilliant kid that had no real feelings, though. And then like the next kid would be like semi-normal, but a little slow. And then the next, whichever one was next, not in that order per se, it would be very deformed and not okay. So they started taking these kids away from parents, and they did this within my family. And I know this for a fact. For 2 years, they housed them up at the state and, made sure none of them could have children ever.
Oh, that's dark stuff.
And the Gates Foundation, like I've said, don't forget. So Mary Gates, people forget about her. She was on the board of IBM. She's the one that got the deal for Bill. And this is all in this crazy rabbit hole we've been down, like in this. And
Bill Gates' mom was like head of Planned Parenthood or something like that as well, too. Didn't she start it?
The dad was the head of Planned Parenthood, and the mother was involved. So she was the first president of the Kings County's United Way and the first woman to chair the United Way's executive committee. And she was on IBM's board as CEO, and John Opal, and the first woman of First Interstate Bank of Washington's board of directors. So this woman is not playing around. Wow. She's not just sitting back in the back section. Okay. And so she's definitely making sure things are happening. And then we've got these other Gates. So Solomon Mack, he was from this same line, and it says that, he married Lydia Gates of Deacon Daniel Gates, and that is his maternal grandmother. Well, when we know that, and you put in, is Bill Gates related to Deacon Gates? It comes right up. Yes, he is. In fact, they call that line the deacons because it was so prevalent, blah, blah, blah. And here we see them working together so very often, and we see Bill and Melinda Gates continue, I dare say, their eugenics through the whats. And we won't say that word. And he dropped out of Harvard in 1975. He started the Microsoft software company, made him a billionaire by 31. And all of this was due to his parents' success. In fact, his late mother, Mary Gates, was said to be so instrumental, she helped prepare Microsoft into the big leagues. But what people don't understand is the Microsoft punch cards through IBM. They were these little punch cards for your race and different things about you, like if you were gay or if you were straight or if you looked white or if you looked brown, or all these different things that they started running not only in Germany but in prisons and in hospitals and everywhere. And then they go through this Hollerith punch card reader, which is what IBM became hugely famous for, and how he was integral in the war. Back then they were pushing, not him himself, but IBM at this time. And then, it comes down. So obviously Mary Gates would have been involved at that time in that situation. I mean,
yeah.
So was the Mormon Church. They're all John Birchers. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's just wild.
I had no idea. Yeah, my mind's blown though. I had no idea that the Bill Gates, Joseph Smith through Mac connection.
Deacon, the deacons. Wow. If they look through Deacon Smith, Deacon Gates and Lydia Gates. And that was her name, it's very interesting. If you just put it in, is Bill Gates related to Joseph Smith? It won't come up. You got to go through her name or the dad's name or somebody not Joseph Smith and go through the old people that are dead, because it's easier that way, or they'll obfuscate it. Don't forget who runs everything.
Yeah, for sure.
For
sure.
But it's fascinating to me that everywhere I turn, okay, let's do another fun one that I haven't ever sprung on anybody else. You guys are getting some new information today because we're just chatting.
Awesome.
And this is where my weird rabbit hole brain goes. So don't make a woman mad that has ADHD. It's a bad idea. I'm sure the Mormons are like, oh, that woman. But, Dallin H. Oaks was just called, and he was at the University of Chicago when he was young. In fact, he stayed there for a decade or more, and he was super good friends with a bunch of those, Chicago uppity ups. And, at this time, we know that Allen Key is a little formation of skull and bones that has never been done anywhere else. Okay. Ever, ever, ever. It only came directly from Yale to Utah. It was all sanctioned, and then it's never happened again. Okay. Not before or since. It's very strange. And they actually came here and set that up. It wasn't like the Mormons just copied them or some weird dumb thing. No. These graduates came and set this up here in Utah. And then we start thinking about our new prophet and where he went to school at that time. Okay. And there's something called Owl and Snake right out there at the University of Chicago. And, we've got, what's her name? Erica Kirk's grandpa in this weirdo Viking order that's out there at this time. And we've got David M. Kennedy making all kinds of moves. And, we've got Dallin H. Oaks kind of hands in the pudding of everything of Chicago. And now he's the prophet, seer, and revelator of the Mormons. And who is the Pope? Oh, he's from Chicago. Oh, isn't that fun? I bet they knew each other.
Yeah, no kidding.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty wild.
So, it makes you wonder, because we know that David M. Kennedy did go on to fund, the Vatican Bank, and that can be looked at. And I'm going to do a whole thing on all this, but it's so many like spider webs. It's bananas. And so I literally look at it with all the information I have, and I'm like, how do I make this make sense? Right. Other than little pieces at a time. But
that was just it. When I started reading about this stuff, I was just like pretty much every kind of inkling I had, where I was like, oh, I wonder if this is related. Yep. I wonder if this is related. Yep. It's just like every single rabbit hole I went down led back to some old Mormon sect guy somewhere, right?
Or Masons, like Winston Churchill's a fun one, right? Like, what does that have to do with Mormons? Oh, well, they were pretty in good with the Mormons, Winston Churchill was. And who else was he in good with? Well, he was such good friends with Onassis that it is reported that Onassis changed his diapers for him. So, wow. I think that's a pretty good friend. In my opinion. Yep. As a nurse, I'm, not too many people would do that. And Onassis had a great love for Winston Churchill, but also, what was he rumored to be in? Oh, that's right. The Illuminati.
Yeah.
So, we start looking at this, and every time I bring up Masons, people are like, oh, Scottish Rite. I'm like, no, it's too new. Back then, it would have only been arranged maybe 50 to 75 years. And to get here and get widespread, and plus we know, that Joseph was part of the York Rite, and he was raised to a Master Mason in one day, which is super interesting because he was super young. And we also know, that he did all this woo-woo stuff, right? Like he's drawing magic circles and soothsaying and witchcrafty stuff. So I dare say the Mizraim Rite fits that much better, which people won't like, because every single time I say that, I get about 6 emails how it's not that. And I should look harder. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you guys that this rite is very old. Okay. The Rite of Mizraim or Martinism, we can call it that. And yes, it broke into pieces, okay? And people will say, well, it's all in the heart because St. Martin and blah. Okay, true. But you forget that Cagliostro was a part of that. And he wasn't all about the heart. And he really liked to practice magic. And he actually went to Haiti at some point. So we have to know that Cagliostro was also the name that, Crowley said he came back and was Cagliostro. Okay.
Yeah.
He said that was, in a previous life. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not a probably, nice guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I think he was up to a lot. And, we know that Joseph Smith was getting a lot of knowledge from somebody named Lumen Walters. He liked to call himself that, Lumen, like light bringer, like the light.
Yeah.
And he just got back from France. And actually, when he got back from France, they said he was godless and they ran him out of town. Well, that's interesting. I wonder what he was up to, and we know that this was one of his teachers. We also know he wasn't a dumb farm boy. He was practicing Hebrew with a Jewish person that had converted, and teaching Joseph all kinds of things. Would you practice Hebrew if you couldn't write an English letter? Like, no?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's nuts. Like, Hebrew's hard,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's like, you always say he was displayed as like an unlearned man, but yet he was seemed to have the answers for everything. So,
right. Yeah, because he was doing Solomonic magic, which, by the way, to this day, the two kind of magic people don't really want to practice unless they're very adept at it. They'll even tell you, like, hey, bro, don't just go doing this at home because you might screw up your whole life and ruin your life, right? Is Solomonic magic and Enochian magic, which are the two things Joseph Smith was definitely practicing. And we look at this and it definitely aligns with this rite of Mizraim because it says they're actual practitioners of magic. They don't just read about it and become ultra knowledge people. That's a lot of the Scottish rite. They don't necessarily, I can't say for all lodges, but not everybody's out there practicing magic in the moonlight. They're just really not. Okay. They're probably having dinners and learning some weird stuff.
Well, it's just theoretic for a lot of them, right?
Mm-hmm. It's all in your mind, like the Saint Martin, and I'm not discounting that. The mind is a very important thing. But also when we look at this, I know that he practically applied it. When did he get the plates? The plates he got on the fall equinox in the middle of the night, dressed in all black, and he had to, take certain things or the angel wouldn't talk to him. And these are in the spring and the fall. The rite of Mizraim says that's when they can conjure and speak with angels. So, it kind of fits.
Yeah.
I'm listening to
I don't like that.
Listening to you in preparing for this, I heard you mention there's another time where that date comes into play. Is it during the Salem witch trials?
Yes. This is my favorite thing ever, is that Joseph Smith, his great-great-grandpa, Samuel Smith. Now you'll find two. There's Samuel Smith, the senior, and then the second, which is Captain Samuel Smith. You'll often see him listed as captain, but they're not smart people. It wasn't like he was a selectman. Yes, he was. It wasn't like he had ESQ after his last name. Yes, he did. So, right. We're not talking about stupid, dumb people. Okay. We're just not on either side. His mother was learned too. His father actually filled in as a school teacher sometimes. And so his mom was basically like a lay midwife, which is very important back then, knowing what we know. But yes, so the first Samuel, born in 1666, isn't that a fun date?
Yeah.
Especially knowing Sabbatai. Well, anyway, we won't go down that weird rabbit hole, but I'm telling you this, he was born near Salem. And he gets himself entangled in this whole Mary Eastie thing. And she was actually hung on that day. And she died and said, I am dying as an innocent woman, and I hope you all get what you deserve. She kind of put that out there. She didn't necessarily curse them, but she was like, God knows the truth, and I'm sticking in that, and you'll get yours. And so she just kind of left it at that. And he literally put that nail in her coffin because he was one of the few men that actually came against her. Why would he do that? Well, the Goulds, who are critical, they're good friends of the Putnams. That is his in-laws. And so it's all about money. They're having a back and forth fight, and oftentimes the alchemists and different things back then, they were the ones that were accusing other people that knew that they could do certain things. And so, Mary Eastie, I think, was just collateral damage, for that family. But it was very sad. And it was the same exact day, 100 and something years later, where Joseph Smith gets these plates. And, we have to always remember the angel said, nope, you need to bring your brother. And the brother died. And then they dug him up to say they didn't dig him up, to show that they didn't do anything, just because you guys are gossiping. And then they ran that in the paper like 5 times. Yeah, that's all weird, Well, I can't say that I know for sure.
Do you think there was maybe like a little bit of a necromancy plan going on there with that? Or
well, we have a joke is that maybe Alvin had a hand in Mormonism. We just don't know. But I know this. They also moved Joseph and Hiram multiple times. I don't think those graves have any bones in them, to be honest. I think they're all where they need to be. And I'm sure that means in altars and different things. I think necromancy plays a huge part. Some of the things that happen here in the temples, they're doing weird circle prayers around an altar. We have no idea what's in there. No idea. I mean, we don't know what we're conjuring when we take a name on by proxy. We don't know what's happening with any of that. And by the way, would you have loved to be the person that, you are the proxy of this person? They did Hitler. I mean, what if you got that name that day? And Ava Braun and all the Jews that died for everything they believed in, and Anne Frank, and that really pissed some people off. And so they kind of got in trouble for that. But then they started doing it again. They said they'd quit it, but they didn't. So
just let the buzz die down and then back at her.
Yeah, they did. And, it's just kind of wild to me that, there's multiple mentions of those Mormons. Don't let those Mormons get me after my death. Like, people were putting this in their wills before it was even released that it was a thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all... That's. I mean, that goes back to like the Solomonic magic, right? All the the necromancy stuff. That's
yes.
And another thing I have to worry about.
Great.
They will get you. Yeah. It doesn't matter if people always say, "Well, I'm not a Mormon." I'm like, it doesn't matter. If you are related very distantly, 30th cousins to some Mormon, they're going to do your work. They're going to get you.
So weird synchronicity with the 23andMe stuff. So my wife is adopted. And had I known what 23andMe was when at the time, I probably wouldn't have bought this for her. But it was always a conversation where she didn't really know her family lineage and stuff. So one year for Christmas, I got her 23andMe. And through that, her biological father actually ended up finding her. And turns out his whole family is Mormon. So it's just like,
don't worry, they would have got you anyway. I always tell people I did it too, because it was like all the rage at Christmas time, kind of. And I did both. I did Ancestry and 23andMe, both. And, I just tell people, don't forget, they take your blood when you're born out of your soul, out of your sole of your foot. Those pictures of that institution where they keep the genealogy files are very interesting. The size of their drawers are not big file drawers like you would think like papers would be big. They're these little drawers and they look like the Dewey Decimal System size drawers, but longer, like an envelope. And that's what size the PKUs are that we do at birth on every single baby ever born. And one set goes to the state, and there's another one that I don't know where that goes. And so, the shareholdings in Utah are interesting, and not just Utah, but the Mormon Church and labs and medical things.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So makes you wonder.
Yeah. No, I mean, there were so many questions I had. I was trying to keep it sort of concise, but then there's just these kind of random questions that came up sort of all over the place.
I know I have one big random question.
Is it this one?
That is the one.
Yeah. Okay.
You can ask it though. Go ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to obviously trying to find Canadian ties. Like, we're out on the West Coast. We're on Vancouver Island. So the whole Sasquatch lore is big out here. It's kind of embedded into everything. And I forget what episode I was listening to, but you were talking about some sort of connection between Mormons, Cain, and their belief in Bigfoot. Can you kind of break that down?
So Mormon cane, they believe that it's, well, this is old time, okay? If you went up to somebody nowadays and said, do you believe Bigfoot is cane? They might look at you like you're crazy because they won't know this stuff. This is clear back from an apostle in 1900s, I believe. Let's see, probably 1800s. But E. Wesley Smith, son of the prophet Joseph F. Smith, so this is the line of Joseph Smith, okay, spoke about this in Journal of Mormon History, Mormon Bigfoot, David Patton's Cane and Concept of Evil in LDS Folklore. So they're talking about Leah Hawaii Temple was dedicated in 1921, and E. Wesley experienced the following events. A man came through the door, and he was tall enough to stoop when he had to enter. His eyes were protruding and wild. His fingernails were thick and long and presented an unkempt appearance and wore no clothing at all. Then suddenly appeared in Smith's right hand a light which had the size of an appearance of a dagger. A voice said, "This is your priesthood." He commanded the person in the name of the Lord Jesus to depart, and immediately the person was commanded to leave and went out the back door. So that's one of them. Also, like another one was saying he was walking and, somebody came up on him, and it was reportedly Cain, and he looked like a very strange man, and they thought it was Bigfoot. Although now they will say, oh, that was just a big hairy man that was not of white color, and they try to blame it on weird like racism. I'm sorry. I think people know the difference between a darker colored man and a crazy wild looking beast. The way they're describing it is like very scary. And so they also say in one of them that Cain, the Bigfoot Cain, mated with the women, the Mormon women, and put that line into the Mormon line. All these are old wise tales now.
Yeah.
So most people don't know about them at all. But
yeah,
they're quite interesting. That is for sure. Yes. So there's, like I said, a lot of these people are apostles. And so that gives it a little more cred. Also, LDS Spencer W. Kimball, he was a prophet and spoke about this story of Cain, to be a fugitive and a vagabond and have to roam the world all the days of his life. And that was in Miracle of Forgiveness, relying on the experience of David W. Patton, one of the Quorum of the 12. And he literally said he spoke with this creature for some time. And so they also say that there have been sightings in Utah, and especially whenever they dedicate a new temple.
Interesting.
So for the cornerstone, which guess what? They quit doing it. Last year, they announced they're not doing cornerstone ceremonies anymore.
Really?
Did they give a reason or just?
They just said they're not going to do it anymore. And I thought, did everybody see Bigfoot Cain one day and they got scared?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but it made me laugh. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, I thought it's just the whole Bigfoot thing was kind of, and the fact that he's like, kind of a vagabond forced to travel around, and the whole thing with Sasquatch is that he travels through portals, right? Like he uses the trees and the forest as portals and he's sort of like a watcher kind of figure. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of
Isn't that weird? And then knowing all the mountains we have here, and I don't know if you've ever been out this way, but I mean, Canada probably has some awesome mountains too. We have some very big mountains. They're not hills; they're big.
Well, I mean,
So
like the Rockies run all the way down, right?
Yeah. Could it hide here? Sure, maybe. Maybe there's a whole clan of them I don't even know about. Mormon women, Bigfoot things. Who knows?
Yeah. When they travel through the monoliths that are there, maybe.
Right. Well, the Grand Canyon.
How they get in and out.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I don't.
I mean, Utah is a weird place. It's like one of the few places in the world that you could be here in northern Utah and you could see snow and mountains and greenery. I mean, it's still more dryish, but it's not like Canada. I've been to Canada. It's beautiful. That's a whole different thing. that greenery is not what we have, but we have a lot of pines and different things. And then we have the desert and this weird sandstone, like all of this red rock and in the other part. And then we have like barren lands. I mean, mines, one of the biggest copper mines in the world that can be seen from supposedly space, they say, run by King of England. But I digress.
Weren't you saying something about limestone and stuff too? And there's like a bunch of temples built on different limestone deposits, and that's totally like a Freemasonry thing as well.
That was about the city of Kingston in Ontario. It's known as the Limestone City.
Awesome. Yeah, we use granite here, but yeah. So they say, that they got it from the quarry, which is really far away. I'm like, okay, granite blocks that weigh a bajillion. I mean, okay, whatever you say. I don't know how that happened, but who knows? It's weird. It's, there's a lot of folklore, but there's also a lot of things that don't make a whole ton of sense. And the reason, I step back and look at it, like Brigham Young comes here and he says, this is the place. We have a lake. It's full of salt. It's got like 40 or 50 times more salt in it than the ocean. Its makeup is the closest to the Dead Sea, but there's nothing else even similarly close. Like that's the best they can get, and it's still not it. Like it's not as close as it needs to be. Like it's harsh lands. It's hard to cultivate. I'm like, what on earth was he doing? Like, was that temple already partially here? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Was it already pre-chosen? Yeah.
And they relocated. So that temple is built on the 111th degree. And funny enough, the Oddfellows temple, which is here, and we have a cool Masonic temple too, but they're all on the same one, but they had to move the Oddfellows temple again, maybe earthquakes or something. And now it's also on the 111th degree.
So they just keep shifting things around as they need to.
They move the whole building instead of tearing it down, right? That's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some hidden history here for sure. They don't talk about the Oddfellows. They don't talk about Masonry a ton. I didn't know I was a Mason. I didn't know what Masonry was. I didn't know I was wearing Masonry on my undergarments, If they can choose your underwear for you, I think you're pretty much brainwashed. Yeah.
I'll tell that to my wife then.
Yeah, I think so. Like, oh man. So it's such a weird, situation. And by the time you're in it, well, I was born in it, but for my ex-husband who wasn't, he was Roman Catholic, by the time you're in it and that's your brotherhood, they call you brother, whatever, or sister, whatever, very magical terms, They used to call it Breuer and Sawyer, actually. The LDS polygamists still do. And, Joseph would arrange even his councils from youngest and oldest to youngest in a magical half circle. Like it's all very witchcrafty. And he knew some things. Like I don't care what they say, he did. But by the time you're in it, I don't know that you really think anything's weird anymore because you're like, oh, but that's just what we do. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like daylight savings.
Yeah.
It's just what you do. Even though it screws you up.
Makes no sense. Yeah, makes no sense, but it's just what we do. Yeah. Because we're not not that many of us are farming anymore, like we don't have to be home by the time the plowing or whatever they were doing there. I don't know what, but it makes not a lot of sense for sure. But here we are. And
here we are.
The Masonry ties are huge. Brigham Young continues that, through, I would say even more so than Joseph Smith because, but there's some, he married the widow of the whole Morgan affair. Did you know that? And then
this is Brigham Young?
Oh, both. Joseph and Brigham ended up marrying her. And so just strange things all the way around, completely intertwined. The Society of Cincinnati is in there. You guys with the General E. Lee thing up in Canada. And he goes there and then he's like in here with the Mormons, good. And they still do this Alfalfa Club, which Mitt Romney was the president of. You see John Birchers and the Rotary, all of these things intertwined. And people still want to tell me I'm crazy. You guys out there are crazy if you don't see the connects.
Yeah. If it looks like
By
a
the
duck and
time-
it quacks like a duck.
Right.
duck.
Yeah. By the time we all figure it out, it's going to be too late because they bred like 10 million kids and we're all screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy. And
yeah.
eugenicize the ones that didn't work out for them, like what? It's, I mean, yeah.
This is a bright
And you-
future we have to look forward to here.
Right. You hear them push this eugenics thing, but not for Elon Musk. He's making babies every other minute, not for,
Yeah.
the people in the club. So,
How does he even?
yeah,
have the
I dare
time?
say. Yeah,
Well,
they're
his
in the
clones
club.
are out there
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I think that they definitely figured out some things on that, the
Mhm.
eugenics, and it's scary, really,
sure.
honestly. If you look at the first prophet after, okay, so you got the two guys that look just completely like I said, of maybe Jewish ancestry somewhere, not Hasidic Jews, but probably Ashkenazi type look, which that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying it's going to rapidly change with the next one. And he looks really weird. And he's got this crazy eye and all this stuff. And I'll find his name. And it's a Smith as well. And you just step back and go, what's going on over there? Like what happened with this? And
Yeah.
I'm not saying people can't look crazy, but it almost looks like they were, I don't know, messing
Trying
around.
stuff.
Yeah, it just
Someone
looks.
dropped the test tube on the way to the.
Well,
yeah.
And my mom said they used to give all these women back in the day, even when she was young, these vitamin drops that were like liquid here. And I was like, boy, that would be a super smart way to do that if you were doing that during pregnancy. That's
Yeah.
what she said they had to do. And so I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, well, I mean, and they're also bringing in people from Sweden and bringing in like very white and delightsome type people, bringing them in. They're also marrying into the Micmac on purpose so that they can get their magical qualities, That was literally said. And also to do them a favor and lighten up their children. That was
Ooh.
what they said. To buy their children and marry the women so that they could help them become more white and delightsome. And there's even talks that actually use that wordage. I can see my Nephite sisters getting lighter and lighter. I'm like, yeah, you can, because you killed everybody.
Holy.
Like,
Wow.
yeah. And then all the kids in that area, if we talk about Lanzo Meadows, they're all Mary and Joseph for tons of years. Like all the Micmac named their kids Mary and Joseph, Mary and Joseph, Mary and Joseph. My great-great-grandma was Mary. Like it just goes all the way down like that, and they force that on them. But there's Templar, presence there. I way before Columbus, like way before Columbus.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Canada connection with this is very interesting, and especially with Jason Mack. There was rumors that he lived with the Micmac Indians, and so it really makes you wonder. It's not just rumors; it's like in books. That's where I got that from.
Well, and it honestly makes sense that they would do that because that's like the woo woo. Canada's a very sort of like, I don't know, not a very religious place all in all. Like there's most people are kind of indifferent towards spirituality here, which is sad. But like the culture and the spiritual side of Canada exists with our Indigenous communities, right? So if they came,
what
here,
about like Rosicrucianism or spiritualism? I
mean, it's obviously tied in like our parliament, our parliamentary system, and all of that. But if you ask the average Canadian, they won't even know what the word Rosicrucian means, so it's
that's such a good way to hide it too. Like if no one believes, they can do whatever they want because nobody cares, right? Like everybody's like, whatever, that guy's weird, but he's fine,
Canadians are very like, when you meet that like arrogant atheist, and it's like, in my view, it's like atheism is one of the silliest beliefs ever because it's like
because it's nothing. Yeah.
Because it's nothing. Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of the vibe up here where it's like, people are sort of self-righteous and like, well, I'm past that kind of, intellectually
that's so
beyond.
Silly. Yeah.
It is. It's ridiculous. But
yeah. No, I mean, they probably think it's so silly that you're talking about like God or something. Like you said, they're past that. Oh, you're so silly.
Oh, even just our parliamentary, like the rituals of like how they bring parliament into into play every year, and everything's a ritual. Everything is either a humiliation ritual where they like drag the speaker of the house down. Like it's out in plain sight, but people just view it as this like
this is what
just
we
silly
do.
Canadian
this
history.
is just what we do. Yeah,
just a
you're
bunch
Mormons.
of silly,
no, just kidding.
silly goofs up here.
Always face the queen while the anthem's playing for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
it's funny how much you can see the occult in things, but like you said, people will just say, "That's just what we do." Mormons, same thing. That's just what we do. Why do you wear funny underwear? I don't know. That's what my grandma did. And it does. It stays. And people always say, "Well, it's not magic. That's stupid. Magic doesn't work." And I'm like, if it didn't work, it'd be gone. It'd be gone. Yeah.
Exactly.
It works.
Yeah,
I don't want to
100%.
see it work. I'm good. But I'm just saying, I don't doubt that people, gave up their lives for this. And every time we turn around, we see like a Crowley, but he's a spy. We see the guy that ran the orphan trains. He's a spy. And so all these people that we see, they're constantly intertwined with government and some weird stuff or religion. Right. He was religious pastor. And I got in trouble once. Somebody said, he's a pariah. And I said, he was a spy and in a secret society that they won't name. It's even worse than Freemasonry,
Yeah.
And it's constant. And so when I look at it, I'm like, look, this is when people say there's going to be a one world religion, I'm like, you're late. It's here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's only for the elites, and we are all the goyim.
Yeah.
No,
yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm with you as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad because there's some stuff for the initiated and other stuff like what with your grandpa. That's exactly what was going on. Is he was telling you some advanced initiation stuff where typically they're not supposed to really, same for Mormons, like that's not for the uninitiated, but he assumed probably you would follow, in those footsteps or whatnot. So he probably felt safe doing that as your family. So,
yeah. And I've encountered a lot of Masons in my life that have been very friendly towards me. And I've always kind of thought, it's like, do you know who my great grandfather is? Like how did you just happen to be in my life kind of thing? It's a little strange. Yeah.
They're probably trying to, be important there. And also, overall, just like the Mormons, they've got plenty of people that are just nice people trying to get to heaven, or nice people trying to get to their whatever level. I work with a Mason, like Paranoid American's a Mason, he's out there with it. I don't care. I don't care what anybody wants to do. Here's the thing. But when you oppress people or you force things or you hide it and you lie, that's why I speak out, because we are, as Mormon people, and I'll say we because I was raised in it, we are lied to from the very moment of the time you can speak and just inundated with all this stuff. And then they wonder why you're mad and can't leave it alone once you find out this is a lie. Well, my whole thing is people say you can leave Mormonism, but you can't leave it alone. Or, just shut up and move on with your life. Geez, nothing worse than an ex-smoke. So cringy. But you ought to read the comments. And I'm like, okay, but if you found out that we were all going to, perish in a building here in 20 minutes and you knew first and you had 20 minutes to get everybody out, would you just leave?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or would you start helping people get the hell out of there?
Yeah.
And so that's me. I would probably end up perishing myself trying to get people out of there. That's just who I am as a human being,
Yeah. And have you had, I imagine you've had a decent amount of backlash from some of your shows, but have you, on the other end of it, have you had people that are like, oh my God, thank you for letting me know I'm not doing this anymore?
Yes. The hate is more like on percentage wise, I would say it's like a 90 to 10% ratio, but that's okay. Because even if you plant the little seeds and they don't know now, it took 20 years for me to change. So never just count it out or think that it doesn't matter. Maybe you said one tiny thing that's going to help somebody, and I try really hard to help people on their exit out or whatever. If they write me, I'll answer. Like, I try not to be like, oh, just don't read the comments. And there's so much hate that it would be easy not to. But through the hate, there's like certain comments where you're like, oh, that person needs help. Like the 27th comment down, you know?
Yeah.
So it's worth it. I mean, that's the whole reason why I did this. And so I was very God-led in this. I don't feel like this was a me thing. I don't think I ever would have dreamed this up in my wildest dreams to come and expose my entire, not just my life, but my ancestry. Like everything is on view for people at all times. If your hair looks bad or you're having a bad day, you know, whatever the case may be. Like I have asthma off and on prednisone. So sometimes my face will look weird or whatever that situation is, you learn to get past it. And you learn that the message is what you're really supposed to focus on, because maybe you're going to help somebody. And so, you know, that's worth it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they say like all you need is 20% for a revolution, right? So in whatever it is. So, so
Right.
if you're halfway there.
Right. Yeah, it's good. I mean, whatever people do with it, that's okay. At least they have the truth. And if the LDS church came out tomorrow and said, look, yeah, we used to be this witchcraft weirdo cult, but now we're this kind of cult and we do this instead. And they still do some of that weird stuff too. But, you know, if they were just honest with it, kind of like Freemasons, even though they don't tell you the whole thing, you know, some things like everybody knows like, oh, they're weird a little bit, or they do this or that. There's little rumors, you know, instead of just us believing, because we don't get those little, like, oh, have you heard blah, blah, because we're in Utah and nobody talks like that because everybody's in the club, like everybody. And so there's no one to help anyone. And, you know, we all just do it. Why? Just like Parliament, that's what we do here. And so I want to be at least some voice of reason for people. And that way, if the church ever came out and said, you know what, you got us, like, yep. And then, or even if they said, yeah, we're just a normal organization until you get to this level and it gets a little weird, even if it was just that, you know, like, yeah, we do some weird stuff here or whatever, then it would be a lot different than what they do to people. They just lie. And you're supposed to be people of God and you lie your asses off. And you're working with Nazis and getting funded. Like, come on. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Follow the money, follow the power. That's always the way it is, right? So. Crazy. Well,
weird.
On that, on that note, I don't want to keep you all day, but I really, really appreciate you jumping on with us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I learned a lot.
Of course,
and
I had a fun time.
I have a lot to unpack now.
That's how I feel every day.
I'm just going to go stare at a wall for the next hour and break it all down. But
get some string and make a little, no.
yeah.
That's how I feel some days. Yeah.
For sure. But I guess, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the one mistake I definitely think that they made recently is the whole Charlie Kirk thing. I think that has blown open a hole literally in the middle of Utah, and people are just exposing, like all the bees are coming out of the hive, so to speak. And, you know, even Candace Owens is talking about Mormons, which she's whatever too. But I'm just saying.
Yeah. Anyone that's on CAA is questionable to me, but I hear you.
It's you know, she's on the who's who and all the things like it. I mean, we can't trust anybody, but even me. So that's why I say, go look it up. Like, I hope they do trust me, but you know, I try to give the pass for them to go see so that they can see for themselves. Yeah,
for sure.
But thank you.
Well,
thank you again.
Yeah, no, I guess, before we go here, if there's anything you want to let the people know, and tell them where they can find you and all that.
Yeah, perfect. And anytime. And if you guys want to come on as well, that would be a fun talk. Maybe we can talk about your grandpa stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Or even about Canada in general. We love Canada. Me and my husband been up there quite a few times. So actually my listeners, they're second on my list under America. is Canada.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we went on a big trip to Banff and whatnot, right as I started. And once you get those first listeners, they kind of stayed, which I'm grateful. So, hi, Canada. I love you. It's
Awesome.
beautiful there.
It is, yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm Heidi Luv of the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. You can find me also at unfilteredrisepodcast.com if you want to not be on a pod chaser, but the best place to find me is on Spotify, because a lot of my episodes cannot go on YouTube, especially the new ones. Cannot. I did a recent interview about the ninth gate. There's no way that's going to be allowed on YouTube. This eugenic stuff, no way. Like, they're not going to let me do it. So please find me there. Once a week on YouTube, I'll drop something that will work, like that they won't, freak completely out. But I got dinged a few times, and so I chilled out on that. Patreon also has some really cool medical stuff right now. And I think we're going to be headed into a new series. So you get 2 extra shows a month. That's how I do it. I don't split my episodes. I don't like to do that. And you'll just get the 2 extra episodes. I think we're going to be headed into the diseases that caused like serial killers, or the diseases that they may have already pre-existingly had. And so we did a carnival series, like all the weird deformities that used to happen that don't happen so much anymore. So me and Deplorable Nation do that together. Janet, she's amazing.
Awesome.
And so all of that you can find on my Patreon for $5 and no commercials. So that's fun too. I also am on Twitter, or X, or whatever they want to call it now. I'm much more active on there than Instagram, because you can be, they kind of let you go. So
Fair enough.
find me there. And I'm happy to come on anytime. This was a blast. And anytime I can talk to somebody and like we just get into the weeds, it's kind of fun for me. So
Yeah, no,
Fun
for
for
sure.
us too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I'm.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was great. Anytime you want to jump on or whatever, definitely keep in
Perfect.
touch.
Awesome. Sounds good, you guys.
Thanks, Heidi.
Have a great day.
Take
Bye.
it easy.